Welcome everyone, and thank you for clicking on this video where hopefully I can answer some questions that you may have about Lens Island. And when we say lens, it isn't what I first thought it was, namely a lens from a magnifying glass or something. Hey, I don't know why I thought that, but Lens Island refers to the main character whose name is Len. I guess it is because in my part of the world, Len is not a name you see much. The game was released on Steam on the 27th of November 2021 and is currently early access and will be that way for 2 years up to the end of 2023. The price point is about US $20 and that will increase as the game approaches completion. Steam reviews are very positive and it is developed and published by Flow Studios based out of Australia. Up to this point the game has been developed by two developers, but after the early access release the studio is now expanding to around 10 people. Talking of growth, consider hitting the sub or like button if you enjoy this content, and if you just want to hear my overall opinion and not any of the details as to how I form that opinion, look at the YouTube timeline below. Now in this review I'm going to cover off the following: what the Steam page says about the game, the roadmap the devs have planned, how your game plays out, what I liked about the game, what needs some improvement, and my overall opinion. Build, fight, farm and explore. Experience your own path, whether it's building the home of your dreams, tending to your crops and watching the sun go down, or explore the mysteries of the island and the darkness underneath. But you may want to take a sword with you. Further into the explanation of the game, they also say this: it is an intense dungeon crawler with a deep and complex combat system mixed with a relaxing farming and building sim inside an open world setting. There's little to no specific goals or directions. You have the freedom to carve your own pathway forward. On the Flow Studios Discord page you can see the game's roadmap. It is worth a look if you're interested in the game, and I'll put that link into the description. The roadmap is split into two parts: the next 3 to 12 months and then the next 12 months after that. In the next year, some of the key points is they're going to bring in controller support, change some of the key mapping, give you more options there. There's going to be some changes to the way the color is done. They're going to be upgrading the engine to the latest version of Unity, expanding the dungeons and connecting the islands, bringing in a mini map, some boss, some more enemies, more buildings and decorations, and various other bits and pieces. Post that, they're looking into a console and portable console version of the game, multiplayer co-op support, adding in new worlds, islands to travel to and live on, fishing, beekeeping, collectible pets, all sorts of other bits and pieces, and maybe even a final boss. To keep it simple, you are this chap Len on this island. You start off with a little raft and a few tools, but you will quickly start chopping down trees, pickaxing rocks, hacking down grass to gather resources. You know the way it goes. You will almost certainly immediately start building your house, then put down a workbench, and then focus on gathering more and more resources to build and craft all the various items which supplement or upgrade your basic ones. A key part of your early game is going to be exploring the island, gathering up glass from the beaches and hacking up the barrels that float around for the various components that they have in them. Eating berries is going to be essential as they not only boost your food levels, but they also boost your health at the same time. Early game I struggled a bit with finding enough berries to keep me going, but I learnt that a fireplace heals you, so I just used that to keep me alive while I got my crops going. The resources around you respawn quite frequently, and then you are going to naturally move to build up your own crops. When I first started, I didn't understand why there were flowers around until I discovered that after I repaired the bridge just north of my starting location, there was a town, and in that town I could buy and sell almost every resource that I could find. This discovery led me to 2 lines of farming: berries for food and flowers to sell. Now once you put down a refinery, you're going to use this over time as it turns stones into these things called shards. These are key components of many upgrades, and without this, you can be really hard to come across shards on the island. You're going to be using your refinery a lot. Now you're going to start grinding out all sorts of stuff. You're going to start really focusing in on making shards, growing flowers for money, so you can start to unlock some of the advanced gear. A really key thing you're going to need to do is to buy a backpack at the town and really focus on this, as the backpack allows increased carrying capacity, and without this you just cannot physically make the advanced items. Now eventually you're going to venture into the dungeons which are underneath the island, where the game sort of becomes Diablo-like, but is nowhere near as advanced. Don't get your hopes up in that regards. I'd describe it as a very primitive Diablo, and in the dungeon you will of course find much better resources, but along with this are monsters that you're going to have to fight. You're going to be lured deeper and deeper into the dungeons, seeking resources and fight tougher monsters as you go in turn. Combat will become more important. Dodging and clever use of the rolling system can really help. That often falls apart when you're swarmed, and then gobbling berries rapidly will enable you to keep fighting, as these instantly give you health back, so you can eat them during combat as you are getting hit. In the dungeons there are things called keystones which you can activate, and these act as portals back to the surface. The game will eventually become a game of time on the surface, growing crops and refining materials to make more exotic ones, with trips to the town to sell and or buy items, with frequent trips to the dungeon to quickly gather those key resources that you're running low of, as the resources and monsters do respawn after a day or so, so you can repeatedly raid that dungeon. As such, the game at the moment becomes about how keen are you as a player to gather resource to try and unlock a new item, tool and or weapon. The game does not at this point in time have an end state, and it is kind of open world, meaning you can just keep playing, but after a shortish time you will eventually have done everything. The graphics are quite nice. They are clean and sharp, the colours work well, and the whole game is drawn in a really nice way. I liked the graphics in the game, and the game ran very smoothly. The user interface, simple but works really well. No major complaints with it. I've got a little issue, but I'll talk about that in a sec. The building mechanic of building your house is really solid. You go into this pause mode, so it is pretty free way of building, and the building looks good with a lot of variations on what you can build and decorations that you can put in. So if you're someone that is really into building, you could construct some really nice looking buildings, unlike my pretty miserable efforts. I never felt like I was forced in this game. Yeah, I know it. To achieve certain things I had to refine materials, earn money and all that type of stuff, but it never felt forced. Sometimes games have this horrible grindy forced feel, and Lens Island never really gave me that. I always felt like I had the ability to choose my future. The game is well paced. At times it almost felt peaceful, but other times I knew I had to go get resources to crack on and do things, but it never really felt urgent. I could always just work on my house and my crops, and those other things could wait. I like that in the game. That always sits really well with me. The dungeons feel like dungeons. They feel dark, they have an air of danger, and the monsters that you face are pretty well done. They aren't overpowered or underpowered, and they do feel like they stretch into the depths of dungeons. The farming system isn't complicated, but I really liked it. I liked the way the crops grew, the way they looked, the way you watered them, and then you can set up automated watering systems. If you wanted, you could become a big-time farmer in this game, growing a pretty wide variety of crops. Now truthfully, right now they are not all particularly useful. You can sell them all, which is great, but the full mechanics for each of these crops are not quite in the game. But I found myself doing a lot of farming, and it was certainly not unpleasant. The system on how you store items and tools is a little odd. Now I do like the UI overall, but this particular facet was odd. You build these different storage items or containers, but they kind of all do the same thing. They don't really have any purpose. Now I'm going to say that this will be fleshed out in the months ahead, but right now it was a bit clumsy. I feel like there needs to be magic in the game. The monsters hint at magic, of course, and even some of the items you get kind of look magical, but they're not. So I didn't bother buying the various weapons on display at the town because most of them were just a minor tweak in damage or speed. It was just a little bit lame. Yes, the different tiers of weapons that you can craft did improve on the previous ones, but I really felt like this game needs a magical element that you can bring to bear in it. I think it would really elevate the game. The healing process is just through food intake, berries for the most part of your time. They are really healing potions, as you can scoff 10 in a row and they almost instantly heal you. It is a little too simplistic, and this game could do with a food and water mechanic and a health mechanic. I feel that games that don't try to do this often fall short on the survival feel, that it can feel a little bit cheap. And in this game, the farming system, I could easily make 500 berries, and in essence these berries are minor healing potions with instant results. It's just not quite right. At this point in time, it needs to feel more open world. Currently a lot is closed off, and let's face it, when you play a game and you come across parts of the map that are going to be new dungeons in the future, for me right now it just feels disappointing that they are not there. Now I know they are working on that, but it's going to be quite some time before this map is fully finished. The dungeons need to be bigger. They feel good, but they do need to be bigger, and they need more in them. They feel a little empty, with lots of buildings with nothing in them. I guess a good way to say at times the dungeons felt a little hollow. When it comes to early access games, it can be tricky to give a final rating for a game, as it may change significantly. And as of the time of this video, Lens Island has 2 more years of early access, so it's got a lot more to come into it. So a lot is going to change, but regardless of that, you are paying for the game now, and you need to see if it is something that you're going to hang in there with. Before I say anything else, this game has a gambling mechanic in it. Now, I'm sorry for being all woke and everything, but I can't let it slide. The gambling mechanic is where you put your gold coins on blackjack. Look, I'm really sorry, but it's 2022 now, and having this in the game, although it may seem innocuous to a lot of people, is just outdated and significantly poor judgment. It brings no value to the game apart from being a sideshow entertainment. Sorry, I've just seen friends pour money into gambling and it destroy their lives. It's just not something I can let slide. Moving on. So when it comes to reviewing games like this, we should look at them as 1, is it worth what you paid for it right now? And 2, is it a game that will capture you enough to keep you tied in and waiting for the final release in 2 years' time? So is it worth the US $20 odd right now? Now, with no disrespect to the lead developer who has poured his life into this, it is probably right now a tad on the expensive side for what you're getting. Not by much, but after 20 hours, I'd done most of what I wanted to do. Yeah, there was a few more things I could have chased around, but they didn't really have much major meaning for me or the game. The game is 100% open-ended, and you could play it for 200 hours right now and just build things and get rich, but is just repeating and expanding on content you essentially unlocked at hour 10. And definitely as you play the game, it feels significantly unfinished, but it is early access. Is it then a game that you should put your money into to see where it lands in a couple of years? And honestly, to this I can say absolutely yes. If you like this sort of game, Lens Island is actually quite superb overall in what it delivers right now. Yeah, there's a few things that need to be sorted, but right now it is exceptionally well balanced. The grind of resource gathering, the repeated forays into the dungeons, the treasure and loot seeking, well, it's all really good. It's not complicated, but it is really well done. I never once, not once, felt like it was grindy. It felt like I had to work hard for certain things, but not overly so. The balance between the dungeon and the almost Diablo gameplay, simplistic as it was, and the house farm building is finally worked out. What it shows me is that right now and in the future, you can choose your game style in Lens Island, and this shows that it has a really great future. Should you buy the game? Yeah, but you need to be aware that right now it is unfinished, which isn't surprising as it's early access. But if the developers can continue the well-balanced nature of the game that they have right now, whilst greatly increasing the depth of gameplay over the next 2 years, the signs are all there that Lens Island could obtain some pretty lofty heights. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it informative. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next chapter.